And at a certain point, the YouTube started becoming a phenomenon. How did that happen? And did you ever see yourself as being, on video, video person?
No, absolutely not. I never thought of it. Matter of fact, when I was taking a lot of pictures, and I kept saying, I'm buying all these cameras, and the cameras you could shoot video on a camera. I said, who cares about video? Why would anyone ever need to shoot video? Right. But what happened was, around 2007, I'm working for CNET, and they had a lot of podcasts and things, but they had a tech talk show, a daily talk show called The 404, which was shot every day around 11 o'clock in the morning. And it was kind of a talk show, but it had a humor aspect to it. So it was like funny tech talk thing. And there were 3 hosts. And right around the time it started is when I started my blog, which was called The Audiophiliac. That's where the name comes from, is my blog. And they said, Steve, you want to be a guest on this show? It was video. They had a television studio. They did this live. And I go in and I sit down. Now, I didn't even know where the cameras were in this room, right? I just saw the 3 hosts. Okay. And we just had this conversation. And it just felt really comfortable. And it got to be a thing for the 10 years that show ran. They'd say, we don't have any ideas. Let's get Steve in here, and he could just talk for 45 minutes, and we'll have a show. Okay. So I got to be a regular guest on this thing where I would just sit in the chair, and usually I knew what days I was going to be on, and I would think of topics, and I'd come in with this list of paper that they used to make fun of. There was just these scribble notes, and they'd say, what does this say? I said, but and I just really got into doing this thing with these guys. So I requested that CNET give me my own show, because I had done dozens and dozens of these appearances, and I said, I think I could pull this off. And I even said I could bring advertisers that don't advertise on CNET, in other words, audio manufacturers, to subsidize this show. So please give me the show.
This was on YouTube, or this was on their channel?
Well, this was
on their website.
This was on their website, but it was also on YouTube.
Okay.
So I kept requesting that they give me a shot. I said, just let me make one episode as a pilot episode. This took a year before they would let me make this pilot episode. I made a pilot episode, and the higher-ups at CNET didn't get it. They kept saying, well, we don't understand what he's talking about. And I'm saying to my boss, I said, I don't care if they understand. I have an audience. Because at that point, I had about 1 million people a month reading my blog. I said, I got an audience. I don't care about your audience. I got my own that will watch this. And time drags on. And then I said, let me do another one. So I did another pilot with a co-host, somebody I work with there. We really were good together. So this next one, same thing. Nothing happens. So at that point, I'm getting really frustrated because this is stretched out over time. I said, screw it. I'm going to start my own YouTube channel to show them what it is, rather than try to explain it all the time. Let's just do the freaking thing. It's not hard. So I started the YouTube channel, and about a month, because at that point where I started, I made a video every day. So I had 7 days a week, new content.
Okay, wait, back up 1 second. I'm sorry. So were there other people who were doing this at that time?
The only other one of any significance was Paul McGowan from PS Audio.
Okay.
He had a YouTube channel. So he had it maybe 2 years before I started.
Okay.
So he was established. Was there anybody else? No, I don't think so. Not that I can remember, no.
Okay, so within a month, what happened?
So a month goes by, and it's not that I was getting lots of views or anything, but I started to realize that I didn't want it to be a CNET show. Because if it was a CNET show, they would own it, and they would to some degree control it. And I thought, I'm not going to ask anymore to have my own thing on CNET. I'll just do it myself. And it built very slowly. I would say in the first year, I don't know if I had 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers. But things happened where it really grew in big spurts. So it kept growing, obviously. But it was very satisfying to make video as opposed to write. And maybe a year and a half into having the channel, I basically resigned from CNET because I said, I just want to focus on just making videos.
So what do you have now? Like a quarter million subscribers or something like that?
230,000.
Oh, you're getting there.
Yeah, I'm
You're getting a
there.
big number.
This year, 2023, I think I'll hit a quarter of a million. But it's not the number. It's that I felt making videos was a more natural thing for me to do than to write about it. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting, when I would go to shows, hi-fi shows and stuff, or be in stores, and people would recognize me, the connection that they had to what I was talking about was so much stronger than me as a writer.
Right,
Now, that's just something about me as a writer. But the video connection, the intimacy, the connection between viewer and somebody on YouTube is way better.
Your lifelike image comes into their home.
Yeah, they feel like they know you. It's more personal. And just the inflections in my voice and how I talk about it, it's just a way better way of communicating.
Well, that brings up something I wanted to ask you. So today, you walk out the door, you go to get, a donut or something, or you're shopping. How often people recognize you? When you go to a show, everybody knows you're there.
Oh, it shows a lot of people. They sometimes line up to take selfies with me at shows. But on the street, it's funny. I
don't have to line up next time, do I?
No, you go right to the head of the line.
Thank you. Okay.
Sometimes when I'm just walking around in public, could be 2 or 3 weeks, and then with nobody, and then sometimes a few people in a day recognize me.
Okay, so that kind of takes us up to the current day. What's your life like? What's your typical day? What do? You wake up and you think about a video, or you think about it while you're sleeping, and then people come over here, or you travel to them. What do you do?
Well, it's funny that you say while you're sleeping. I do actually plan out videos while I'm sleeping. I wake up with, I have to do this right now. I have an idea. Okay. This happens a lot.
Right.
I feel like making videos, first of all, this is the hardest thing that I've ever done, is to have a YouTube channel. Right. Because there's no break. I'm sorry to break this to you. If you're making your living doing this, there's no slacking off.
Right.
You cannot slack off. Right. I mean that literally. It's like, I actually saw an interview with the president of YouTube. She's a woman, and a YouTuber is interviewing her. And he said, so what happens if I take off a month? Will I get less exposure, less promotion on YouTube? And she said, maybe. Okay. Meaning, what I feel like in YouTube land, if you are a creator, that's what people who make videos are called, creators. Right. Either you're going up or you're going down. You can't really be flat, So you have to produce. I call it being a slave to the algorithm. Right. And it's a real thing. Right. And YouTube burnout is a common thing for people who create videos.
It's hard.
It's hard. But the thing is, I have an advantage in that, is that I've been doing content creation for 25 or 26 years. So constantly creating things is not hard for me to do. No, but making videos is not just having the idea and writing it down. You have to do all this production work of shooting the video and editing the video and uploading the video and stuff. So that's really time consuming to do. And again, there's no slacking off.
I know what you're talking about as far as there's no just sitting at one place, because if you're sitting in one place, you're losing some subscribers. That's just the way it works. Right. So you got to be always pushing upwards. But I guess, what was the video, 1 or 2 videos that just went terribly? That was just a disaster, that, things fell down and, caught the apartment on fire or whatever. Who knows? I mean, are there any like that?
I'll tell you, no, actually none that I can think of, but I'll tell you the one that went up like a rocket, to use an old-fashioned expression. And I didn't know that this was going to work this way, is when the first wireless Apple earbuds came out. I thought, I should do a review of them, because at that point I was doing a lot of headphone stuff. So Apple I couldn't get one on my own. I couldn't get a review sample. I knew that wasn't going to happen. I didn't even bother. So I went to an Apple store, and I sat down. I had, I was writing down notes. I had them in, and I'm writing notes. And then I, went home and shot a video. Now the thing is that I basically said, it's not worth $250. The wired headphones sound so much better than this one, right? So I did a negative review of this shiny new, very exciting Apple product. And most of the other reviews on YouTube and online were positive. And I did a negative review of this product that everybody loved. And I had gigantic numbers And in one day, the first day, I had something like 880 new subscribers. Wow. That one day. And the day after, I had 600 or 700, and then I had 600. And it just stayed at this really high level for a month of just adding gigantic amounts of subscribers just from that one video and having really big numbers, because that's the thing. As you're going up, you're more likely to continue going up. Right. So that's what that was. And it was, I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't plan it that way, but that's the way it worked.
Yeah, it's all about the algorithm. Yeah, I got a couple of products I'm thinking about making a video on that. I just don't like them, and I think everybody unanimously, I've seen raves one after the next.
Oh, that'll
so
do
I'm ready for two of them. I have in mind.
Just be careful, because the thing about doing negative, writing or making a video of a negative review is tricky, because you really have to be right. You have to explain yourself clearly, because there's real people involved.
Oh, I understand. I've been doing this for a long time, decades, and I've had negative reviews out there, and I've been threatened to be sued. I never have been sued, but I've been threatened to be sued. I had even one where I just didn't think, well, it wasn't a bad review. I talked about it nicely, but I'm just like, there are other more innovative solutions out there, and this is just something. And the manufacturer got all upset, but I'm very judicious. I don't just go out and trash people. I understand people put their livelihood and their soul into their products, but sometimes you have to call it as it is.
Do it.
Yeah. So just a couple of topics. We got a lot of good stuff, so I appreciate it. Let's just throw a couple at you, like the MoFi controversy that's been going on with the digitization of the vinyl records. What's your take on that?
When that came out, I did a video, and I basically said, I'm really sorry this happened, blah, blah, blah. And if you feel that you bought it because you thought it was an all analog transfer and you're pissed off, I wouldn't blame you if you said, I'm never going to buy anything from Mobile Fidelity or MoFi ever again. I can't trust them. I don't like them. I said, that I understand. But people made videos. One guy in particular, who I can't really identify, the tone of his voice was like somebody died. Like, this is so sad. Right. This is so awful. This is a terrible thing. So really, you live in 2020, then 2022, and the MoFi thing is terrible? Wow, you've lived a very sheltered life if you think this is awful. Right. So I didn't feel that was that big a deal. I don't think it was a great thing, but I think like they screwed up. They did. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. And how about the whole analog versus digital thing? Where do you fall? You're a real vinyl guy? Is that where you come out at the end of the day?
Here's the thing that is, I guess in a way, a confession about my relationship to vinyl, is that I've always had a turntable. As an adult, I've always had a turntable. I've always been buying vinyl. But there's big chunks of my life where I was doing so many reviews of other kinds of products that I couldn't play any vinyl. My turntable wasn't connected to the receiver or something that I was reviewing. So I would go weeks, months sometimes without playing any vinyl. And I got used to not being like my go-to thing to listen to. Right? But a couple of years ago, I reviewed a Technics turntable, an SL1500C, and I liked it. And I said, I'm going to review another. And I kept moving up with Technics. And I realized that I enjoyed playing records more on this Technics turntable, eventually a 1200G, than my SME Model 15 turntables. I thought, this is really weird, because the SME is a really good turntable. Why, and I have them side by side, why am I moving towards playing records on the Technics? And the answer was, it's just easier, it's less fussy, it's less waiting for the platter to come up to speed and putting the clamp on, all these things. And it set this thing in motion that I now play vinyl for myself, not reviewing time. I play probably 80% of my listening time is vinyl and only 20% is streaming or CDs. Where before it was reversed. It was probably 80% digital and 20% analog. But now, in other words, I'm in a big analog mode and I'm buying lots and lots of records.
So you like streaming?
I like streaming to discover music. I absolutely do. Okay. And it sounds okay, but it's not, it doesn't, see, I always felt that streaming was in many ways subversive, right? It makes listeners passive, right? They just put it on, it plays, nothing is required from them. That's a bad thing for me, well, for them, to not be in any way an attentive listener. It's not to say that you couldn't be, but you're less likely to be. Okay. So that was something that I wasn't really happy with. I mean, I once interviewed 6 or 7 people who had just gotten their first turntable. And what they all said, without any prompting from me, is that they listen. They listen. They don't jump around. You know, even I interviewed a 14-year-old boy who just got his first turntable. He said that, you know. So it changes. It's not that analog sounds better. It's that there's a higher level of engagement if you're playing vinyl than certainly if you're streaming.
It's ritualistic for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me throw one more at you. I don't want to put you on the spot here.
Oh, great.
So I guess we'll edit it out if you have.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Now I'm nervous.
No, don't be nervous.
You're a lawyer, right? You're putting me on the stand.
I used to be a lawyer, but MQA. What's your take? It's good. It's good. It's bad. It's the emperor without clothes. It's very controversial.
Yeah, MQA. It's fascinating to me because when the whole MQA thing started, the question was, what is it? How is a file made MQA? And it seemed like in the early days of MQA, and possibly to today, that Bob Stewart had a hand in, or someone that worked for him, in basically mastering a recording in MQA, meaning a human being was making decisions about how this recording will sound. Now, most of the stuff that's on Tidal that's MQA is just basically run through the MQA encoder and it becomes that MQA.
Okay.
But I think a lot of the early judgments and positive reactions to MQA was basically the mastering of a file or an album or a song in MQA that people liked so much.
Right.
That really put me off. I was not like, it's cheating. It's not an apples to apples comparison. So, and I noted that many companies like Shit Audio was extremely popular. I said to Mike Moffat and Jason Stoddard, "You going to do any MQA DACs?" And they said, "No, we don't want to do what we would have to do to our DAC." I'm paraphrasing their words. We don't want to do to our DAC what we would need to do to make it decode MQA. Now, it would be easy for them to just roll with it and say, "Sure, we'll do MQA in our DAC." But many companies, you'll note, didn't make MQA DACs. Right. And I also think, just to put one more nail in the coffin here, so to speak, is if MQA is so wonderful, why is it that the only way that most people get to hear MQA is on Tidal? Has any other streaming company ever converted to doing MQA streaming?
Okay, so I just got one more for you. I'm just throwing it at you, and just because people want to know.
Okay, I'm here. I'm ready to answer.
What you think about this stuff.
Good.
High res versus Redbook 1644. Do you find a difference in sound quality in the high res downloads? Or streaming for that.
I think there could be, but the thing is, what makes something high res is mostly about resolution. And when we use this word resolution in the sense of high res audio, what we're really talking about is resolution of hearing into the quieter parts of the signal, like room sound, reverberation, or effects or something. It's not just the loud stuff is as good as it's ever going to be. Resolution, or high resolution, is, in other words, when Chesky is doing high res, it was recorded in a church. You heard the room, you heard the acoustics, you heard all of that. But in a typical recording that's compressed when it's dynamically compressed when it's recorded, compressed again when it's mixed, compressed again when it's mastered. Yep. There ain't no quiet stuff in there anymore, if there ever was. So putting a number on it, calling it 9624 or 24192, there's nothing there. There's no resolution to be had. I'm overstating for emphasis, but I'm just saying most recordings wouldn't really benefit. They could sound different, but I don't think they really are using what high res is capable of. Right. I mean, of doing, because in a Chesky recording, where there's little or no dynamic range compression, you can hear that the high res sounds better, but not in a typical, commercial recording.
Right, and in that type of setting, if someone asked me to, put on a really, really good sounding recording, I'll oftentimes put on a Redbook 1644 because they sound nice.
Yeah, yeah.
They do.
And by the way, one of the things that's confused me, and I do not have an answer to this observation, and that is when I listen to a good recording on a good turntable, cartridge, phone, or preamp, the sound of that to me is high res. It has what I would fantasize what high res is capable of. You know what I'm saying? It's like you hear more space, more ambience, and everything. Now, I remember in the early days of digital, people said, well, that's just an artifact of a stylus, you know, going through a groove that you're hearing all this spurious information and it's pleasing to the ear and that's what it is. And if that's what it is, that's cool. But I'm just saying, whatever it is, playing good recording, good turntable, that has something that speaks to me or sounds to me like what high-res audio is. And even high-res, good quality digital never quite gets it.
Yeah.
So
when
it's complicated.
When analog is set up properly, and it takes a little bit of doing, even the high end is just superb. Yeah. Superb. I mean, it's even more, to me, high resolution than a lot of high res recordings.
Yeah. Now, I just made a video where I noted that when digital first arrived in 1982, I really expected that when I would hear an all-digital recording, that it would sound significantly more like real people playing together because all of the problems, the known problems of analog were gone. Noise, speed variation, stereo separation, flutter, frequency response, all of those things, gone, not better, 100% improved, right? But it didn't sound more real. I didn't think it sounded bad. I just said, well, if all the things that we're saying that analog is lacking in are eliminated, shouldn't it sound more real? And it didn't sound more realistic or more there or even more engaging. It sounded cleaner. You might even say more transparent, but it didn't sound more. Pianos did not sound more like a piano.
It sounded a little more linear, but it
sounded more linear,
but it didn't sound as quite as human.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And I will just tack on one other thing that someone said to me, an audiophile said to me recently about this fantasy of perfect sound. I said, if we got there and you could have recordings and playback systems that sounded 100% real. Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard a real drum kit in your room? How loud that would be? Or, you know, a rock band? So even if we could do it, you wouldn't want that level of dynamics and power. And it's not like you can just turn it down. I mean, the turn it down thing, obviously you would be playing it lower. But if you took a highly dynamic recording and turned it down, you would just be hearing the loud parts and the quieter parts would be gone, right? So this fantasy of like, I want perfect reproduction of a symphony orchestra, if you could have it, I don't think it could work in a normal living space. So it's unobtainable. So what we're really shooting for is what we consider to be a pleasing, if highly inaccurate, representation of the music that we like. That's, I think, the ultimate goal, not 100% fidelity to the original event.
Well, I agree, and I know what I like, and what I like is not necessarily, you know, the original fidelity. I do it to please myself and nobody else.
Right.
And I'm never under any illusion that that's a realistic reproduction of what's happened.
I mean, this guy pointed out, like, you play a hi-fi, really good recording, and then if you have someone who can play, let's say, a trumpet. Okay, stand between my speakers and play your trumpet. It was just like, whoa! It was just blows away. It's not even close, right?
100%.
Could you handle, you know, a true representation of a jazz band in your, much less a rock band? No, it ain't going to happen.
I get it.
So we're chasing something that, it's like chasing the thing and then you catch it. Then you don't really want it anymore.
Interesting. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. If people want to find you, they can go over to the Audiophiliac. They know where to find you. Okay. Everybody just go over to the Audiophiliac and check it out. And thanks for having me, Steve. We appreciate it. Again, if you like what you're seeing on our channel, please, or Steve's channel, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment and leave a like, and we appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.